with bronze shackles around his wrists and with his eyes gouged out. I know it's gross, but follow me. And with his hair completely shaved off. And he had one hand each pressed up against two huge pillars holding up this huge building. And he's surrounded by his enemies. And he's helpless, and he's hopeless, and he's powerless. And he doesn't have any friends coming to help him, and he doesn't have any family coming to help him. And this dude is in a bad place. So I told you last week, I love when I'm watching a movie, and they show me something from the end, a scene from the end of the movie at the beginning of the movie. Because if I just hop on board at the beginning of a movie, it might take me a while to get invested. It might take me a while to get interested. I might be like, well, I don't know if I'm going to like the characters. I don't know if I'm going to like the story. I have zero attention span, so it's hard to get my attention to begin with. And then I'm nervous that maybe if I keep watching the movie, I won't like where it's going, or it's predictable, or it doesn't have a good ending, so like, But if I see the end of a movie first and it's really intriguing and mysterious and dramatic and tragic, then I'll be like, oh snap, I better pay attention to this whole movie because I want to try to guess how they got there. I want to follow the storyline. I want to kind of see how things develop with the characters, and I want to try to guess where this thing's going. And so that's how we kind of want to do this series. We want to show you the end of Samson's life, and then we want to look at how did he get there? What happens? And so what we concluded last week, we kind of looked at one predominant storyline. What we looked at last week is that Samson made a series of poor choices that led him to this terrible spot that he's in, this bad situation. And we talked about last week the importance of our choices and who we choose to be and how we choose to live in the world. Well, that was just one storyline from Samson. We set up a lot of background and context. I want to take you guys through another storyline from this epic story of Samson. You see, whenever you're reading a story or you're watching a movie, at any given point as you're watching, there's several different storylines. You'll have a storyline of like the main character. You have a storyline for like maybe a romantic interest. You have like a storyline of like the villain. You got like a storyline of maybe a little romance. You got a storyline of like comedic relief. You got a storyline, you got all these different storylines. And a good movie will weave all these storylines together. A good story weaves all these storylines together. And so last week we looked at the storyline of the choices that Samson made and how he was disobedient and he disregarded his parents and his people, and that led him to where he ended up at the end of the story. This week I want to look at the second storyline, and it's the storyline of Samson versus the Philistines. Samson versus the Philistines. And Samson is going to go to war this week. Samson's going to fight, and just like we had that fight night tonight, he's going to try to wild out with some Philistines in this story today as we track the storyline. But I don't want this to just be a story that's in your Bible that you learn about and then you go home and you're like, okay, now I know another Bible story. That's awesome. Here's what I want you guys to take away from it, okay? I want this to stick with you. We're going to expound upon this throughout the text. But here's what I suggest to you early on. The bottom line, takeaway, write it down, snap a pic of it. Anger, violence, and vengeance only ever lead to destruction. I'm going to say it again. Anger, violence, and vengeance only ever lead to destruction. And so you might hear that and be like, well, I don't have like vengeance with anyone. That sounds like really dramatic, Matt. Like, yikes, take it down a couple notches. Here's the thing. We all have some anger in our lives. There's situations we deal with where we're kind of angry. We all have some situations in our life where someone's wronged us and we're like, man, I need to get them back. And so what I want to show you tonight is if you play into that and you are influenced by that, it's never going to lead to anything good. It's only ever going to lead to some negative stuff. It's going to lead to destruction of relationships, sometimes even people's lives. Now, here's why this is important for you guys, okay? My hope, my prayer tonight is that you hear this and this changes the way you interact with people. This changes your relationship. And more specifically, it changes the way you deal with conflict in relationships. Okay, because again, you will find yourself time and again in situations in life where you're angry with someone or you're frustrated with someone or someone's coming at you and you're like, whoa, I want this text tonight to teach us how to deal with that. And we're actually going to kind of look at Samson's folly, how Samson did it and how we should not do it. And then hopefully that will teach us a little something about how we should act. And we'll look at a verse from the New Testament later to do that. Now, before we launch into the story, I just need a couple things real quick. Can you guys kind of open up the center section because I need to use it? So if you guys just want to scoot to the outskirts, I just need to use this. Now, I need someone to volunteer to be Samson for me. Does anyone want to volunteer to be Samson for me? Oh, you've already been in one. I need Samson. I need a Samson. I need someone who can handle it. I need someone. Okay, right back here. Okay. Yeah. Come on up. All right. But you can't act crazy. All right, Samson. One of the things to know about Samson, come on up. He had long hair. There was your wig. Now, 3 quick things about Samson we learned last week. First thing, Samson is an Israelite, and he's living in the promised land, which is good. The promised land that God had promised to his people. That is looking right. It's supposed to be more like a mullet. I don't know. You have to tease it out a little. Tease it. Get it in some volume. All right, so Samson's living in the promised land with the Israelites. This should be a good thing, but the problem is they're under oppression from a group of people called the Philistines. And the Philistines are oppressing Samson and his people. But the good news is that God has raised Samson up to be a warrior, to be a leader who is going to liberate the people from the Philistines who are oppressing them. And we found out last week that Samson actually has been endowed or given great strength. Now, we talked about last week, too, we all have this perception of Samson that he was like this CrossFit jacked dude. Not saying that you're not jacked. I mean, you seem like you're in good shape, but I'm just saying. We picture him as this monster giant guy. No. Samson was just he was a dude. He was just a dude. But when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, he was empowered and he was strengthened to do incredible things. So last week, what was it he did last week? Oh, yeah. He tore a lion apart with his bare hands. A lion. Yeah, that is nice. And so, yeah, your character did. Yeah. You did not. No, you don't actually get to tear a lion. No, you don't. Actually, no, go ahead. Bring in the lion, everybody. I'm just kidding. That would scare. I saw a couple people freak out just then. So he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, super strong, okay? So Samson, living in Israel under the oppression of the Philistines, God has called him, put a calling on his life to liberate the Israelites from the Philistines, and he's going to do it with his great strength. But this is the part of the story where Samson starts having interactions with the Philistines. And what we're going to see in the story today is this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth conflict where Samson hits the Philistines, they hit him back. He hits them, they hit him back. And what we're going to see, again, is so many times in life we have a similar situation where we're just going back and forth with someone. Maybe we're exchanging hurtful words, maybe hurtful actions, and we're just going back and forth. So I want to visualize this story for you guys. So I need someone to volunteer to be a Philistine for me. I need a Philistine. Oh, dang, dude, you stood up with 2 hands. All right, come on up. I'm going to give you a Philistine battle helmet. I need one more volunteer to be an old man, and then I need a girl. Old man, all right, you right here. You right here. Okay, and then I need right here. You're not the old man, but here, you guys got to clear this section out. Clear this section out. Clear this section out. Scoot to the sides. Okay, so you 3 over here. This is going to be the land of the Philistines, okay? You're in the middle. You're in the middle here. Scoot over here. All right, so these are the Philistines. And again, they have been oppressing Samson's people. Well, we talked about how last week Samson went to the land of the Philistines, follow me, Samson, and he found a girl that he wants to marry. Oh, how romantic. Except that Samson wasn't supposed to marry a Philistine. We talked about why. This was a bozo no-no. Shame, shame, I know your name. So he was not supposed to marry her. But he does anyway. And then we talked about last week that at his wedding, which his wedding lasted not 1, not 2, not 3, but 7 days, because that's how they did weddings back then. At this wedding, he starts cracking jokes and making bets with her family members. So there's 30 different Philistines. No, you don't actually get to say a joke. Do you have a joke? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so no jokes. So no knock-knock jokes, no. All right, so he's making a bet with these 30 family members, okay? And so he comes up to these 30 family members, and he's like, okay, I'm going to bet you something. I'm going to tell you a riddle. And if you can't get the riddle, oh, you do have a joke?
Minecraft diamonds.
Okay, I don't know how much that. Okay. Yeah, it's emeralds, bro. Tighten up your Minecraft reference. Tighten up your Minecraft reference. All right, so he makes a deal. He's like, all right, if you can guess my riddle, you have to give me 30 pairs of clothes. Well, if he bets that with 30 guys, 30 pairs of clothes, that means he's betting the clothes on their back. So if they lose the bet, these 30 guys have to give him all their clothes. They'll be naked. They'll be embarrassed, okay? Here, everyone, pay attention. Shh. So he makes this bet with them. They cheat. The Philistines wrong Samson. They cheat, and they threaten his wife. So turn to the wife. And so they threaten the wife. They're like, you better tell us what the answer is. And so finally she's like, okay, I will. So then they get the answer right, and they tell Samson, oh, we got your riddle right now. And so they share the riddle with Samson, and Samson knows they cheated. And so Samson's angry. Give me angry face.
Ah!
That was intense. Man, that was intense. Oh. All right. So Samson's mad. Now, all they did was cheat a little bit on a question. But this is how Samson responds. He wanders over somewhere, and he murders 30 Philistines. Just straight murders 30 Philistines. Then he takes their clothes. He comes back over. He pays his debt. He gives them the 30 clothes back. It was clothes. Or it's supposed to be emeralds. Tighten up your Minecraft reference. And so we see this first kind of back and forth. The Philistines wrong Samson because they cheat their way into the answer to his riddle, which seems dumb, like who cares? But Samson loses his mind, and because he doesn't have 30 pairs of clothes to give these 30 guys, he goes and kills 30 Philistines and then brings their clothes back. So that's messed up. That's the first kind of back and forth with the Philistines and Samson. Samson just cold-blooded murdered 30 Philistines. Then Samson leaves in a white-hot rage. Come on, we're going back to your hometown. He's angry. He's hot. The text says it with hot anger he leaves. Now, here's the problem. This was during the 7th day of the wedding festival. A wedding lasted 7 days. So technically, this is the last day of the wedding, and he leaves his future bride at the altar because he's mad, and he goes home. And so then Samson eventually comes back. Now, what we don't know initially, but we find out, is that in this culture, in this Philistine culture, hold up, Samson, slow your roll. In this Philistine culture, if the daughter is stood up on her wedding day, girls pay attention to this, this is straight crazy. If a daughter is stood up on her wedding day, or a bride is stood up on her wedding day, then she has to marry the best man. I know, that's weird. So in like today's culture, it'd be like if your future husband stands you up at the altar, you have to marry what you thought was going to be your brother-in-law. And you'd be like, oh man, do you have a 401k? Like what's going on? Like what's the story? And so that's kind of how it worked back then. And so because Samson abandoned his wife in white-hot anger after he killed 30 Philistines, the daughter is given away. So then Samson comes back to the land of the Philistines. He comes up to the dad and he's like, hey, I want my wife now. That's good, Samson. You're really selling it. And so then, why'd you say wife like that? All right, so then the dad tells him, he's like, what? I didn't know. I gave her away because I thought you hated her. Okay, Samson doesn't say that. Don't take too much liberty with this role, but I like where your mind's at. Okay. Just reel it in just a little bit. Okay, this is good. So he's like, what? I thought you hated her. I gave her away. And again, this was just their culture and custom. And again, Samson was acting a fool because he stormed off after killing 30 dudes. And so Samson gets really mad. He's like, how dare you give my wife away? And then the old man's like, you can have my other daughter. She's cute. And Samson's like, don't insult me with that garbage. So then Samson decides he's going to get back at the Philistines. Now, we have the verse up there. Turn to Judges 15, verse 3. Look where Samson's mind is at. This is messed up. He starts conspiring. He's like, I'm going to get back at the Philistines. I'm going to figure out how to get back at the Philistines. I'm going to get them. And this is what he says in verse 3. And Samson said to them, this time I shall be innocent in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm. Samson knows he shouldn't have killed 30 Philistines in cold blood, but he did anyway. But he's like, okay, now the Philistines have wronged me, and I'm going to pay them back. And I'm going to be innocent this time because they've wronged me. They did something wrong to me. I got to do something wrong back. So here's what Samson does. He goes, I won't give you all the details of the story. He decides he's going to burn their fields, all of their fields. How many fields?
All of them.
That's right, all of them. And so he gets. Are you job shadowing me? So he goes and gets some fire. He goes and through this elaborate means, this MacGyver movie pulls, he gets some foxes, he gets some torches, and he decides he's going to burn their land. And so that's exactly what he does. He burns all the land of the Philistines, okay? You only have to follow me when I tell you to, okay? We're good, okay. So he burns all the land of the Philistines. Now, here's the problem. We might hear this and think like, okay, he burned their fields. Who cares? Big whoop. Like if I came to your house and I burned some of the grass in your yard, yes, gotcha. If I went to your house and I burned some of your yard, you'd probably just think like, okay, no, who cares? Or if I did it at your house, you'd probably be like, sweet, I don't have to mow the grass now. Okay, that's awesome. But in this culture and in this context, their entire economy was based on their crops in their fields, their livestock, and the weapons and things they produced. So one of the pillars of their economy was their fields that they could harvest from. And Samson destroys all of it. It's like Samson wipes out their economy. So when we read this, we might not pick up on this, but Samson wipes out their economy. And so what he does is he not only cripples their economy, but this is their sustenance. This is how they feed their kids. So Samson's done something huge here. He's done something horrible. By analogy, it would be like if someone was like, okay, I'm going to figure out where every major oil rig is in America and set it on fire. We'd be like, oh, snap, now we don't have oil. And that would cripple our economy. And we think, how are we going to transport people places? This is bad. This is exactly what Samson does. And it's just because he's mad at this one Philistine, the father. Now, there's another underlying issue here. And this is something I didn't catch when I was reading it as a younger person, but I see now. Samson is punishing all of the Philistines for something that one Philistine did. That's messed up, yeah. That's honestly, that's kind of racist. Because he's taking one person and he's punishing a whole people group or making assumptions about a whole people group based on this one person. So this is bad. What we also see here, so this is irrational. Why? The father was just doing what was normal to his culture, but Samson's like, nah, like that was wrong. So now I'm going to make all the Philistines hurt, and I'm going to punish all of them. That's messed up. And so that's part, when you get into these exchanges like this, these back and forth conflicts where there's anger, and there's rage, and there's violence, and there's vengeance, that's part of the deal. It just gets irrational. And you start doing crazy stuff, and you start blaming people that aren't even to blame. And we see that things have escalated from this little argument over a bet to 30 Philistines murdered to just some guy doing a cultural thing, and now Samson has destroyed their economy. Well, after this, Samson goes back to his homeland. He's back in his homeland. And to get back at Samson, the Philistines take the dad, his father-in-law, and take his now ex-wife. They put him in a house, and they burned them alive, which is messed up. No, you're the Philistine, so you're good. You're the dad, so you died. You died, you died. Boom, you're out. You're out of there. And so they burned to death. Now, nice. So then, here, scoot back a little bit, just so we don't step on you later. So, now what's happened is because of Samson's actions, innocent people have suffered and died in the story. Which, again, when you're in conflicts back and forth like this is what happens. Things get out of hand. It starts with a simple, like cheating on a bet, then 30 people are killed, then an economy is burned, now 2 people have been burned to death. And the fire that Samson started in their fields now has spread to this family. I swear I will be avenged on you. And after that, I will quit. Now, I need to point this out. This word, avenged. This is going to be a key theme of the story. Samson says this time and time again. I will be avenged. And so we see here something that is motivating Samson, something that is important to Samson. He wants to be avenged. So then Samson goes crazy. He starts wilding out with the Philistines, and he beats down a bunch of Philistines, just beats them down. Then he goes back home again, fearing that all the Philistines are going to be mad at him. He leaves, and he goes and hides in a cave. Okay, I need you to go hide in a cave under here. Can you crawl under there? All right, get it. So he goes and he hides in a cave in this place in his homeland called Lehi. Everyone say Lehi. So then the Philistines are like, okay, this dude just promised vengeance. This dude just promised violence. This dude has killed 30 of our people. This dude has torched our economy. This dude just beat up a bunch of Philistines. We're going to come get him. And so the Philistines now go to war with the Israelites. Let me say that again. They go to war with the Israelites. Now, Samson, things have escalated. That's what I need you to see. Things keep escalating in the story. Now, Samson has started a war, and now his homeland is being invaded. And so they invade this place called Lehi, okay? So come over here. They invade this place called Lehi. Now, Samson's people freak out, and they're like, oh no, we're getting invaded by the Philistines. This is bad, this is bad, this is really bad, this is really bad. And here's what the Philistines say. Chapter 15, verse 10. They come up, and after they assault the nation of Israel, or the people of Judah, they look and they're like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Why are you doing this? And they start pointing their fingers at Samson. And they're like, oh, because what Samson did. And they say this line is genius. They say, we have come up to bind Samson, focus on this, to do to him as he did to us. To do to him as he did to us. This is going to be one of the primary things that's going to keep this action going, this conflict going. Everyone is going to think they're innocent in this story. Everyone's just going to be like, what? I'm just doing to them what they did to me. What? It's just back and forth. This is how this works. So then, Samson's people, they're afraid. So they come up to Samson, and they're like, Samson, yeah, you in here, bro? Okay, cool. Real quick, the Philistines are going to kill us, so we're going to need you to come out, and we're going to need to tie you up and give them to them. Are you okay with? Oh, you're okay with that? Okay, cool. But here's what they say. They're chastising Samson. They're like, Samson, what is this you have done to us? And he says, we have it on the board up there. He says, as they have done to me, as they did to me, so I have done to them. As they did to me, so I have done to them. Everyone thinks they're innocent. Everyone's like, what? I'm just doing what they did back. Because this is how anger and violence and vengeance works. When you go back and forth with people like this is how it works. You're always like, no, it's fine. No, I'm just doing what they did to me. It's cool. Thing is, it's not, because it always escalates and it always gets worse and more people get hurt. So Samson's people are like, okay, we're going to tie you up and we're going to bring you to the Philistines. Now, here's the thing. Samson has super strength. And so Samson's like, okay, yeah, go ahead and tie me up. That's good. Great idea, guys. And so they bring him to the people, to the Philistines. And they're like, okay, don't hurt us anymore. Here, you can take him. And then Samson's like, oh no, you're going to get me. And all of a sudden, he goes beast mode. And he rips off his restraints. All right. Wow, moving. And so he goes beast mode, and don't actually go beast mode. Stay calm. He grabs, check this out, the jawbone of a donkey. Anyone here, show of hands, have a jawbone of a donkey laying around their house? Didn't think so. You got a jawbone? Man, why don't you bring it? Okay, a jawbone of a donkey. I was going to order one online, but it was like $85, and I'm like, I got Christmas coming up. You know what I'm saying? Amen. So here's what you need to know about the jawbone of a donkey. I did a little research. This, in ancient civilizations and ancient cultures, has been used as a musical instrument, which is really interesting / weird. Jordan and I watched a YouTube video of it. And you can actually play the jawbone of a donkey like a musical instrument. And so he's taking this musical instrument, something intended for making things that are beautiful and restorative and peaceful, and he turns it into a weapon. It's kind of like you deciding, like, I'm going to kill some people with this clarinet. Or you're like, I'm going to beat someone down with this bassoon. Or it'd be like Jordan coming off stage, taking his guitar, and beating me to death with it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's in your heart to do, but please do not, Brother Jordan. So this is a weird thing Samson's doing. Now, Samson goes out of his mind, beast mode, with the jawbone of a donkey. He strikes down. Kill count, 1,000 Philistines. 1,000. Okay. Dumb bet. Samson loses because they cheated. He then kills 30 people. He then scorches their economy. They then burn a family to death. He now has killed 1,000 Philistines. So if you look at the actions of Samson, kills 30, torches an economy, kills 1,000. It just keeps getting worse and worse. And in Samson's mind, he keeps saying, like he said in verse 3, I'll be innocent when I do them harm. What? I'm just doing to them what they did to me. What's the big deal? The big deal is that it's getting worse and worse. So after this, Philistines go back, beaten, tail between their legs. Yep, that's right. That's very Samson. Good job. So you see, you're playing into the character. That's good. Okay, so then Samson, later on in the story, comes back to the land of the Philistines, and it's like the story resetting all over again. He goes to find a girl. He goes somewhere he shouldn't go. With a person here, you can go sit down, Philistine. I appreciate it. There you go. You can keep the helmet for now. He comes to the land of the Philistines, just like he did before, to find a woman. He's not supposed to marry a Philistine, but he's there anyway, doing something he shouldn't, with someone he shouldn't be doing it with, because that's a key theme of Samson's life. And he meets this girl named Delilah. Delilah charms him. She manipulates him, and then she gets bribed by the city officials. Hey, find out the source of his strength. And she's like, okay. And so then she does find out the source of his strength. She exploits it. She manipulates it. And she finds out that it's his hair. So she cuts his hair off. Whoop, gone. Oh, snap. And so then the Philistines, she goes, hey, Philistines, come get him. They beat him down. Be beat down. Beat him down. That drop down. There you go. Like you're beat down to the ground. They beat him down to the ground. And then they gouge out his eye. On your tummy? How old are you? Yeah, your tummy. And they and they beat him down. They put bronze shackles on him. They gouge out his eyes, and he's got his head shaved. And then we pick up the story. You can go sit down, Samson. I appreciate it, man. And we get back to give it up for Samson. Give it up. And the Oscar goes to... And so Samson is taken to this place called Gaza, and there we find him once again. Wrists in bronze shackles, eyes gouged out, head shaved, hands planted on two giant pillars holding up a giant building. And he's surrounded by his enemies, and he's helpless, and he's hopeless, and he's powerless. No friends, no family. And now we see how Samson got here. Because you can't keep going back and forth with people and making enemies and just giving in to anger and violence and vengeance and expect good things to come out of that, because nothing ever good comes from that. Because anger, vengeance, and violence only ever lead to destruction. And so Samson now, at the end of the story, is on the precipice of his own destruction. But here's a little curveball. Samson decides to pray. In this moment of greatest weakness, he decides, okay, I'm going to pray. And so he calls out to the Lord. And we see this in verse 16. So if you have your Bibles, turn to Judges 16. And Samson cries out to God. Now this prayer is really surprising. Verse 28. Samson called to the Lord and said, "O Lord God, please remember me and please strengthen me. Only one more time, O God." Okay, this prayer's off to a good start. He's praying to God. He's crying out to God in desperation. But then look what he says next. He said, that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. That I might be avenged by the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Okay, earlier on in the story, Samson finds out about how the Philistines have gotten back at him. So he's like, oh man, I'm going to have vengeance on you. And we showed you in the story that was a motivating factor for Samson. Vengeance, violence, doing to them what they did to him. Here at his lowest moment, after he prays to God, still the most important thing to Samson is revenge and vengeance. That's messed up, because we might see the story and be like, okay. So on his deathbed, Samson's probably going to be like, I need to take accountability for my actions. All these horrible things I've done and these atrocities, I killed 30, I burned an economy, I killed 1,000. I get it. I probably earned this. Nope, no accountability. He doesn't care. Secondly, once more, we might think, you know what? Maybe Samson repents at the end of his life. Like, Lord, I have wronged you. You called me to be a leader, to lead my people out of oppression and captivity. And you know what? I've done a terrible job. I've just been selfish, done what I want. My people hate me. My parents, I don't even talk to them. I'm sorry. I've murdered people for no good reason. Nope. The most important thing to Samson at the end of his life is vengeance, because he had his eyes plucked out. Not because his people are oppressed, not because innocent people have died, not because his country's been invaded, because of his eyes. And that's the most important thing to him. So then he cries out to the Lord, and the last thing he says in his life, he screams, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he pushes with everything he has, and the pillars collapse, and the ceiling starts to shake, and the building collapses, and everyone dies. That's a great end to any story. And everyone dies. Samson dies, and all of his enemies surrounding him die. That's not a good thing to clap about. That's so messed up. We'll get to the problem with that clapping. And so he dies, and we find this out, about 3,000 Philistines died that day as well. 3,000. We need to hold on to that number, because watch the progression of the story of Samson. Watch how this gets worse and worse. Stupid bet, stupid gamble they make over the stupid riddle, and the Philistines cheat. Okay, that was a bad move. They wronged him. Samson responds. He kills 30 people. He's not done yet. Then he torches their whole economy. That's really bad. Then he kills 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. And then in his death, he kills 3,000 Philistines. We're not even talking about the economy. Just look at the kill count. He goes 30, 1,000, 3,000. Because that's how this works. This kind of back and forth exchange that's just founded on anger and violence and vengeance, that's how it works. It always will get worse and worse and worse and more intense and more intense. There's this law that says to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. I feel like when it comes to human beings and relationships, to every action there's an equal and intensified reaction. Okay? Like things get worse and worse. So, this is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves in this situation all the time. Maybe you're not murdering Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey, but we find ourselves in conflict with people, just like Samson. And maybe someone spoke an unkind word to you, and they said something hurtful to you, and you think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be totally innocent if I do to them what they did to me. I'm going to hit them back with some cruel words. So maybe right now, you got beef with a friend, or like maybe you're in a fight with someone, and you're like, what? They started it. They were being mean. They're being a jerk. I'm just responding in kind. I'm just doing to them what they did to me. The thing is, this will never lead to anything productive. This will never lead to anything healthy. In fact, it's going to get worse and worse, because then they'll say something that's even more hurtful to you. Then you'll say, oh, okay, I'll be innocent this time. I'm going to do to them what they did to me, and you say something even worse back. And again, anger, violence, and vengeance only lead to destruction. If you're trying to get them back, it's only going to destroy this relationship. Maybe at home with your parents. Maybe you're in a situation right now where you just keep fighting with your parents. Every little thing. And you're like, well, my mom's being a jerk about stuff, and so I'm just going to say something back to her. Well, she says mean things to me. And so you just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Or you're like, okay, I'm going to be rebellious and I'm going to hurt my parents by disobeying or like rebelling or doing something that's going to like hurt them. Okay, that's great. But then there's going to be a reaction and then another action, and then we'll go back and forth, and then nothing good and productive will come from it. And here's the thing, guys. This is why it's so important for you guys to get this. You're going to be in relationships, and you're going to find yourselves in fights, in heated moments, and in conflicts. And the thing you got to realize is you can't go back and forth in an angry manner like this. You can't just go back and forth, because it's going to always intensify. You're going to say stuff you regret, and it's going to be really hurtful. I've done a lot of like counseling with people in my life, and sometimes I talk to couples and they're like, you said something to me 10 years ago that just totally destroyed me and broke my heart. And like, our words can do damage. Our anger can do damage. And so this is why this applies to us. This is why this is relevant. Don't ever get caught in a back and forth exchange like this. Don't do it. Nothing good, I'm warning you, I'm telling you, I've seen it a million times. Nothing good will come from it. But I don't want to tell you just to not do something, okay? I want to tell you something you should do. So, the Apostle Paul writes in the book of Romans. So if you have your Bibles with you, or you have it on your phone, turn to Romans. It's going to be in Romans 12:17. And this is what the Apostle Paul says. When you find yourself in these conflicts, when you find yourself in these situations, whether it's with a friend, family, someone you're dating, maybe someone on your team, maybe it's your coach, check this out. The Apostle Paul says, repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Now, I have found this to be true in my lifetime. I don't need to get angry. I don't need to say violent words to someone or lash out with someone in a violent way with my actions. And I don't need revenge, because vengeance is the Lord's. If we can throw that verse back up there, we see the word vengeance in here. And that's a key word we've seen all night. Samson was like, oh, I'll be avenged. I'll be avenged for what the Philistines have done. And then at the end of his life, he's like, Lord, help me get revenge. I'll be avenged. And here, the Apostle Paul tells us, no, this is dumb. Quit trying to do that. Vengeance is the Lord's. And I found in my lifetime, anytime I try to go back and forth with someone, okay, you hit me, I hit you back. You hit me, I hit you back. Even like with words, actions, whatever. Never goes well. It just destroys the relationship. But I found when I just go, hey, I'm not going to play the game. I am not going to play the game. It's so much better. And you just leave it to them. An angry person can't argue with themselves, okay? So what I found is like, I just peace out. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'll talk to you when you're not so angry anymore. Okay, bye. And I found that has saved me so much stress, so much relational strife, and so much agony in my lifetime. But here's the thing, the Apostle Paul doesn't stop there. He proceeds to tell us in this verse, not only do we need to not engage, but then we kind of re-engage. And he says this in verse 20. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. I have also found this to be wonderfully effective in my lifetime. There's great wisdom and truth in this. And I've had people just be nasty towards me, say hurtful things to me. And you know what always throws people off their game? When you're nice back to them. So if someone's just like, you're a jerk, I can't stand you, you're the worst person, you're a sad excuse for a human being, just do this. Throw them off their game. Just go over to them, kind of get chesty with them. Lean in and give a little hug, okay? Just give them a little hug, pat on the back. I'm telling you, they'll just be like, what is happening right now? It'll throw them off their game. Now, if someone's wanting to hit you, don't do that because I don't want you to get hit. But I'm just saying, that always throws them off their game. I've had people be nasty to me, and I'll just be, okay, cool. And I'll ask them something about themselves, and I'll try to be nice to them, and they're like, what? Did you not just hear that? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. You can be mad at me. Repay evil with good. And it has this beautiful, transformative effect. And instead of doing this whole thing Samson did with the Philistines, back and forth, increasing intensity, things get worse and worse, more and more people get hurt and harmed, you kind of diffuse the situation. So don't repay with evil, repay evil with good. Jesus actually would go on to say something even better, even more encouraging. He says, now this is encouraging / challenging. Jesus said, love your enemies and pray for those who curse you. Love your enemies and pray for those who curse you. This has been one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life, but I've learned that, you know what? I feel less anger and violence and less of a need for revenge when I, trust them to God. You know what? God's going to deal with them in the end. It's not my thing. I just leave it to the Lord. But then when I'm kind to them and then take the intention to speak words of affirmation over them and to pray for them and be concerned for them, it completely diffuses the situation. And I've had relationships in my life. I don't have time to go into it, but I've had people, like I had this dude in high school, mean to me all the time, tried to pick on me, played ball with him. He was a jerk to me, and I never responded. I was just like, okay, whatever, dude. And what was cool was his friends would come up to me and be like, dude, that's messed up. Like, he's acting like a jerk to you. And I'm just like, hey, it's okay. Everyone knew I was involved in church. They knew I was a Jesus follower, and I was like, I'm not going to play that. And what was cool is his friends started kind of gravitating towards me, not because of anything with me, not because I have an interesting personality, have an annoying personality, but because they're like, no, there's something cool about this. And so sometimes people will be like, be the bigger man. No, it's not about that. It's about doing what God has called us to do. And that is, hey, trust them to the Lord. Vengeance is the Lord. I don't need to worry about that. I got more stuff to worry about than that. I'm going to trust them to God. But what's more, I'm going to show them kindness, even though they don't deserve it, even though they don't earn it, because that's what I've been shown. The Lord has been gracious and kind to me. So when I see Jesus say, love your enemies and pray for those who curse you, well, that seems challenging. As a Christian, I find great courage and confidence and motivation and inspiration in the life of Jesus. And Jesus, at the end of his life, finds himself with his hands pierced and nailed to a tree, crown of thorns on his head, pierced side, hanging on that cross, surrounded by enemies, just like our boy Samson. But unlike Samson, Jesus looks down at his enemies, all these people that have wronged him, all these people that he has every right to do to them what they did to him, with every right to do that. And you know what Jesus prays? He doesn't pray, Lord, let me be avenged for the loss of my life, like Samson did. He says, nah. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. That's compelling. That's powerful. That's a game changer. And instead of this back and forth, that's so stressful and exhausting and destructive, Jesus speaks a good word of forgiveness. And it says in the Bible that Jesus does not repay us as our sins deserve. Jesus is not in the business of vengeance and anger and violence. And I realize that in that scenario, I am on the other side. I'm on the side that has done wrong and that has failed and has hurt other people. And I know that I stand in grace every single day. So I ask the question a lot of times when I feel wronged, when I feel someone coming at me, who am I? I've been shown much grace. I should in turn show much grace. I have been forgiven much, so I should forgive much. And if Jesus could love me, even when I was an enemy of God, even when I turned away from God, even when I act a fool, how could I not just let something go with someone and trust them to God? So when you find yourself in conflicts, when you find yourself in these situations, don't do that back and forth thing. Anger, violence, and vengeance only lead to destruction. Don't ruin the good relationships God has put in your life. Don't ruin the good things God has put in your life. Instead, love your enemy and pray for those who curse you. And don't build your life on trying to get back with people, trying to prove people wrong, and trying to prove your own pride and ego. But rather, build your life on the love of Christ that he demonstrated to us on the cross. Let's pray.